listeners. Welcome to another episode of Romance Unraveled. I am one of your co hosts, Jacob Bozen. And for this month of March, we have a new co host with us. Her name is Paige Kinsey. Paige and I went to high school together. We were on the debate team. So, Paige, let's have you introduce yourself.
Hi there. Like Jacob said, we were on the debate team together, I think, for about 2 years. Is how we got to know each other, became quick friends. Currently, now 10 years out of high school. Oh, God, that makes me feel old. I work for a government contracted company. All I'm allowed to say is that we make electrical stuff for the Air Force. Otherwise, I could lose my job. But past that, I have brought along a very dear friend of mine for this episode. Her name is Finn, and I know she's got an interesting story to share. I don't know a ton about it. I haven't heard the full story before, so I'm excited to hear her get into it.
Hi, I'm Finn. I'm an author. I write urban fantasy and I have a journal series. And I'm excited to share my relationship story.
Perfect. Yeah, we can't wait to hear it. I'm curious, what have you published right now?
Yeah, I have like 9 published things. So I have four. The journal is 4 different journals. They're all little different editions with affirmations. And then I have 3 different series that are all connected, telling one story. So they just, as they continue on, everybody gets closer and closer.
Awesome. Yeah, if we have time at the end, we can give the listeners some, you can get into it if you would like. But yeah,
Yes.
let's have you turn to your story. We'll turn it right over to you.
Awesome. Thanks. So my story is about my first husband. I met him in 2001. I moved across the country for him at 19. My mom wanted to kill me. It was good times. Uh, we ended up getting married in '04. I'm aging myself. We moved back to Utah in '05. Got a house together. Um, in '08, we had a baby, and then the financial collapse happened. So that made things interesting. And having a new baby. And he got sick within the first year of his birth. He was a year old, and that was a scary, tumultuous time of knowing if he was going to be okay or not. He did make a full recovery. He's my pain in the butt 16-year-old now. But we ended up getting divorced in 2011. And we began the journey of co parenting together, which is always a fun adventure, um, especially as each person gets in their own relationships and gets remarried. Um, he had a trying relationship at times. A lot of things happened on their side of the fence, and I tried to just manage the situation the best I could while keeping Tristan safe and making sure he was healthy and in a good mindset, as he grew up.
If you're okay with me asking,
Yeah.
what kind of, like, as much as you're able to share, what kind of situations was your first husband getting in, that made you like, was it things that made you question whether your son was safe with him, or
There was some alcohol stuff going on um, in their relationship. And so there was a couple of times that police were called. I would have to go pick up Tristan. He was never per se, well, it was just messy. And so there were times that things got a little scary where at certain points I questioned his safety. And at one point I was like, he can no longer go over there.
How
And
old
thankfully,
was how old was Tristan at this time?
um, the first time the cops were called, he was like 3. And it sort of, there was a few cop calls throughout his childhood. And the last one, he was 12, 13, I think. And that was the time where I was like, okay, I'm putting my foot down. We can't do this anymore. And thankfully, I think Ryan truly cared about his safety and agreed and didn't put up a fight, because we could have gone to court and done all of the messy things. And I just never wanted that for Tristan, nor did I want to put either of us through that, because that's a whole different journey of um not not fun days. And there got to be a point where, Ryan ended their relationship with his wife. And then they got back together. There was a lot of rehab times for her. And when he invited her back into his life, that was when Tristan said, absolutely, I will not have a relationship with you if you're going to have a relationship with her, which was a really hard thing to manage
So
and
so
watch.
this wife that he had, was it mainly she was just an alcoholic, or was she,
Yes.
so that was the main problem?
That was the main problem. Yes, absolutely. She had severe alcohol problems, and Ryan did too. I mean, that was a part of in our relationship. Um and they struggled to get, they were very toxic together. And I just think it was one of those things where they couldn't escape each other. Like they had this pull to each other, but it was so toxic, but they couldn't get away.
So it was like feeding off each other's like
Yeah.
toxic
Yeah.
behaviors.
Yeah. Um, and February of 23, he had a couple things. That month was a very weird month for him. And I put together facts later and found out things that really didn't make sense, that he had told his work things that weren't true. And I got a call from him in the middle of the night, 111. Haha. And I answered the second time, and he said he couldn't pick up Tristan, which I was like, you haven't picked up Tristan. Why would you be picking up Tristan? It was almost like he didn't even know what time of day it was, because he actually asked me, he was like, is it AM or PM? And I was like, it's AM. It's the middle of the night. I was sleeping. And but he was really out of it. And I didn't really know, because of previous instances, if he was actually at the hospital or if he was hallucinating that he was at the hospital. And I actually, so he ended the phone call. He was saying his head hurt really bad and his eyes hurt. And I was like, well, I'm glad you're there. And, keep me updated. Let me know in the morning how you are. Um, and he's like, oh, the doctor's here. I got to go. I was like,
So
check.
he's been to the hospital several times before
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. There had been several hospitalizations for like detox. He had had trouble with having seizures. There had been multiple things, and he wasn't always honest with me. He wouldn't tell me everything that was going on, rightfully so. I'm his ex-wife. Like, he doesn't have to medically tell me what's going on. And I
So
think there's
I guess it necessarily didn't phase you when he said
no,
that, because he had been so many times before.
yeah, yep. And there was also a level of, I won't say annoyance on my half, but kind of, when you watch somebody keep repeating the same patterns, it's like, so I actually called the hospital afterwards because I was worried. And I was like, if he's not there, then he needs to be there. Um,
Right.
and I called, and she couldn't tell me, but I was like, I just need to know if he's there. And she's like, even the way she answered me, and she was like, yes, he's with us. I was like, okay, it's another detox situation or whatever. Obviously, is at the best place that he can be at. And I'm going to go back to sleep because it's
So
2 a.m.
so when you said that he was hallucinating, what made you think that he was hallucinating?
There was a time the year before that he just, and I'm putting together stories that I heard from other people and then what I experienced. Like, he had said he was at the hospital and had told his friends that I took him to the hospital, and I was like, bro, I didn't take him to the hospital. He told me you took him to the hospital. So there was lots of like lying, and they went to the apartment to go get him, and he was off the rails, telling him that there was this big party, that there was this lady on the porch and there was nobody there. So there was a lot of, whether the seizures were causing problems,
Or the alcohol, or
the
maybe both.
alcohol, the both. And honestly, again, he would only tell me so much. And that is a problem when you're only getting partial pieces to a story. So I woke up in the morning. I told Tristan that his dad was at the hospital. I texted him. I didn't hear anything back. And by 9 o'clock or so, his wife called me and told me that he was really sick, that they thought it was his pancreas, and that they didn't know what was wrong. They were going to be moving him up to the other hospital, higher trauma level. And I was like, okay. And at the end of the call, she tells me he's on a vent.
Oh
Okay.
no.
And I said, excuse me, what? What? What did you just say? Why? And she didn't know. She's like, and I was just like, how do you not know? My family has had a lot of medical shit happen in our whole thing. So I'm like really medically. So the second she said that, I was like, oh shit. I was like, well, did you call his parents? Because his parents are in Minnesota. She had not. In fact, she asked me to call them because they didn't like her.
Oh, that's real classy of her.
So
I
I
can only
had
imagine why.
right? I don't know, weird. I had to call his parents. I hadn't talked to them I had seen his dad the year before, but I hadn't talked to his mom in a decade, and she had not liked me because of our divorce and what had happened for a long time. But I had to call and tell them that their son was in the hospital on a ventilator, that it was bad. I didn't know more than that. And he got moved up there. I picked up Tristan from school. I said, we need to go up there. They were doing more tests, and she had called me. Oh, it was like almost 5. And she was like, they did the brain CT or whatever. I can't even remember now. And he has swelling on his brain.
Mm.
And so I put Tristan in the car and we beelined it up to the hospital, to ICU. And as soon as we got there, they knew that I was ex-wife and son and wife. They took us to the room. And whenever they take you to the room, we called it the bad room. What did we call it? I can't even remember. It was the trauma room. They informed us that he had a stroke at some point, a massive stroke. And then
How
there
old was he?
he was 42.
Okay.
He had a massive stroke. When he had gone to the ER that night, no one told him that he fell. She was not there. And he didn't say anything. He said he was there to get off alcohol. And his swelling was so bad that his brain had pushed like 14 millimeters which is, I knew as soon as the doctor said that he was brain dead, and we had to make decisions.
Oh
I
my
bet that
God.
was crazy.
Surreal. And Tristan's gathering it, so he's 14, he's crying. We had to decide what we wanted to do. We needed to get his family here, so that everybody could say goodbye. Tristan didn't want to go in to see him, and I don't blame him. There's a part of me that I'm glad he has whatever memories he has versus those memories. We arranged so that his work knew. I was up at the hospital all day that Thursday, because they didn't want her there to
The
facilitate that.
the wife at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was there with his work, and work coming in two at a time and giving them space and time to say goodbye. I was there all day. And I have a grieving child at home. So by the afternoon, I left to go be with Tristan. Um, the next day, we decided to do organ transplantation and donate his organs. So there was a whole process of that. You have to sign the paperwork. Then they do all the tests to see what's viable, what they can donate.
So my question is, so if he was deemed like an alcoholic and someone who struggled with that, how was that allowed? I know nothing about the process, so I'm just curious if you know.
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, they obviously were like, his liver is not one that can be donated, but there's a
Okay.
lot that they actually can allow, and they do a ton of tests to see is what will, because there was a lot of things that I was like, oh, instantly. And they actually, for organ donation, there's so much, and they get even vessels and skin, and it's almost disturbing because you sit through this whole paperwork of signing and like agreeing to like literally kind of chop them up into pieces, which is horrific, but then there's something magical happening on the other end of it.
Yeah.
But I I took her up to the hospital the next day, and because she didn't have a purse or keys, or I don't know. I was there. Oh, that's the wrong day. First, the same day that I was up there all day was actually the day that they did the brain death test, which is absolutely horrific. So I was there for that, that's when they actually pronounce them dead, because they have to be dead to do the organ donation process.
I mean, that
So
makes sense.
yeah. So they have to be pronounced dead, and then they can begin the organ process and testing and all of that. So I was there with her on Friday. There was a whole event that happened after that. That was a hot mess. By Friday night, they told us that his heart and lungs were able to be matched, and that they were viable. We didn't find out that they were matched until the next morning. And his brother had gotten the chance to come out and say goodbye. Saturday, she didn't want to go up there. She didn't have a need to. He was already gone, so she didn't need to be up there anymore. I went up there that night. You could be up there right before surgery. I mean, you could be there anytime, but they specifically right before they take them back for surgery. And I wanted to make sure that I did a little energy clearing on his heart and just give my love to him.
So it's kind
And
of like your way of saying goodbye to him.
yes, and it was my way of, everybody had told me I didn't need to go up there, being ex-wife, whatever. And in my heart, I knew I did. And that was me being me and showing up, because I had a relationship with him. I was married to him. I have a child with him. And I wanted to honor his body and the body that he chose here to come here with, and say my final goodbyes. They were actually able to match his kidney too. And oddly enough, he had a super kidney, which was one big unibeam, and they were able to split that into two, and so it went to two different people. Heart went to someone and lungs went to somebody, which was really a magical thing. And I guess in closing to the story, because it is the anniversary of his death on Sunday,
Wow.
2 years, is that when you show up when it's hard is what matters. Because not every relationship we have is sometimes rainbows and kittens and puppies, and it's great, and we all love the love portion of love. But relationships are so much more, and they're so much full of as much light as they are with the heavy. And I know I showed up at the end in a way that I knew I needed to. And it's about showing up when it's hard, because that's what matters. Because the people that'll show up for you in the good days, they're great. But I want the people that are there in the bad days and the hard days and the ugly days. Because those people are your cool people. And those people
Yeah.
are the people that matter. So yeah, that's my really happy story about my first marriage.
No, I think that the way that you look at that at the very end, I think that's really special just because in this moment you were the ex-wife and
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have to, you were not obligated to do really anything. They asked you to contact his family, you did that, and then you went and did your goodbyes and your energy clearing of his body, and you
Yeah.
showed up for him. I think that says
Yep.
a lot about you.
Oh, well, thank you. I think that everybody's worthy of that, no matter, what state your relationship is in, is that you show up no matter what. If that's somebody you loved at one point, then you do the right thing. I'm a very like morally correct person.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned like your journals. And I mean, me knowing you personally, like
Yes.
I know what those journals are all about, but
Right.
did your experience through like his death and like the co-parenting, did that like was that a lot of the drive? Was that some of the drive behind you making those journals? Like was it almost a healing
Absolutely.
process?
And not only like through our divorce and relationship, and I mean my own healing and the work that I did, I wanted a place that we could all bring in a positive message to grow from and heal from. So the journals are full of absolute positive affirmations. They build on each other. And even the newest one that's out now is so much more in depth and absolutely has to do with me dealing with the grief. Because you think that if your ex-husband dies, meh, you're over it. You were divorced. It should be fine. It hit me like a bag of rocks in the face. That was hard. That was one of the hardest things I've ever dealt with, was my ex-husband's death, because I'm also dealing with, my child, watching him lose a parent. But it's a grieving process all over again of your relationship,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
you're alone as a parent now. No one else loves your kid as much as they did, you know. Um, so I needed a lot of healing. So I think even the newest journal has a lot of grief aspects to it, because of how much I was going through over the last 2 years.
You know, it kind of reminds me, there's this saying that I heard a few months back actually. Um, turn your pain into power.
Yes,
Like
yes.
that's
And
what
I
it makes
think
me think
that's
of.
it's grief too. I mean, grief is such a difficult um emotion to process, because there's so many layers to grief. I mean, even this week I've had stuff come up and I'm like, "Oh, this is some grief popping up into my space, and how am I going to choose to deal with this?" Because you have to honor that it's there. It's not going anywhere. And it only just kind of gets better. And then of course keeping hawk mama eye on my child, who, he's got an anniversary to deal with this weekend, and just being very gracious with his face, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
I'm curious to know how the wife at the time was dealing with this. Was she distraught about it, or was she kind of distanced?
That
What
was,
was her
yeah,
reaction?
it was a very weird time. She was very distant. I do believe and have heard that she is sober now. So I'm grateful for her for having that, and that I mean, I have my own anger of like, it took you this to get there. Like, couldn't we have done this sooner? But everybody has their path, and everyone has their journey, and their story is their path. But yeah, no, it was a very odd, weird. There was a lot more. There was turmoil around the things that T wanted of his dad's and what she wouldn't allow. But she was in her own grieving process as well, which is difficult. So Yeah, it was an interesting time. Very surreal, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like I said, I think it shows that you're a committed and strong person, and so yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I show up when it's hard. That's like my motto.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, you
you
can own it.
you
I will thank
deserve
my mom for that for sure. Like our family's kind of like that. No matter what's going on, if even if you're not happy with somebody, if something happens, you show up. And that's just who we are at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it was a great story. I think it shows that things can really go wrong really quickly, but like you
Yep.
said, you show up when you have
Yep. You
to.
show up when things are wrong. And I think at the end of the day, there's ways to find even beautiful moments in tragedy,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
even in
So
romance, you know?
yep. It's a Romeo and Juliet kind of tragic story in some ways, but at the end of the day, I have an amazing kid who, you know, has his own path and I get to see Ryan through him, which is really fun. It is really fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you're interested, we could have maybe like a minute or two of you plugging your writing and tell people about that and where they can
Absolutely.
find it.
I would love to. I'm working on actually the second book in my demon series. So my demon Ren, he goes to therapy in the first book because even demons need therapy.
Best
That's so
book
funny.
ever, I have to say.
What?
Best book ever, I have to
That's book.
say.
Yeah. So book two is actually Demon and Crises, which I think again is me dealing with the grief and the trauma in my life. And so I kind of like get to navigate some of that with Ren going to therapy and dealing with this new layer of stuff that's happened. Because so I have Demon who goes to therapy. I have so it's sessions with the demon. Faye is Faye on the Rocks, A Dragon's Heart. It's four Faye sisters who have a bar in Oregon, but they operate a magical portal underneath the bar. Super, super fun book. And then Awakening is Aslan. She gets to save elemental magic for light. But all the stories are all connected. The characters cross over, and everybody's getting closer and closer. And there's characters that meet each other in each book.
It's
So
like
it's
the
fun.
Oh, very
MCU.
fun.
It is like the MCU. It really is. It's become that.
Awesome. Where can our listeners find this if they want to read it?
On my socials, I'll have everything. It's always pinned in my link tree, but Amazon, all my books are on Amazon. I'm working on hopefully getting them on Audible this year. That's my goal. So
Cool.
all the
Awesome.
places.
Yeah,
Wink,
I'll make
wink,
sure
nudge,
to,
nudge. She's
yeah,
also starting a publishing company.
Yes, I
I might
am.
need that for you because I'm writing a book as well. So we
Yes.
can
Oh,
chat
we will
about
have to
that.
have side chats about
Yeah,
this. Yes.
it's almost done actually. So yeah.
Ooh.
Well,
Okay,
it
I'm
is
gonna need
done.
more
It's in
deets.
editing right now. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I need deets
Yeah,
on
we'll
this.
be in touch about that for sure.
For
Um,
sure.
okay, well, as always, for our listeners, you can find us wherever you get your podcast, and you can follow us on social media at Romance Unraveled on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time.